Good afternoon, everybody. Please let's welcome again right here in the last presentation of this afternoon. Please, we're gonna be live in some seconds. And just let you know a little bit more about it. We have two presentations today, this afternoon, and keep it in mind, is it possible? And just remind you, please, you can type your questions, and we are going to ask to the speakers at the end of the presentation. Thinking about, type your question, please. We want you to participate. As you can see, we have right here, there are like 32 people right away. Okay, a minute and a half, we'll be live. 3 p.m. sharp. Okay, right now we have 56 people connected on YouTube. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we are live streaming on Facebook as well as YouTube. Okay. Right, we're live again. So just to say hello to everybody and telling you good afternoon, everybody, for attending to the third and the last block of TDC 2020, organized by SBS International Bookstore. And on behalf of SBS, we want to thank you for your online attendance and the event. This afternoon, we will have two very interesting conferences. Remember that you can write your questions in the chat, and we will send them to the speaker at the end of one's presentation. Well, we start the afternoon with a video of our organizer. Please, let's go with the video.
En SBS Librería Internacional estamos comprometidos con la educación. Brindamos materiales de calidad que abarcan las más diversas áreas del conocimiento humano en formatos físicos y digitales. Nuestra historia comienza hace 24 años, de la mano de nuestros líderes fundadores. Somos parte del grupo SBS Internacional, con sedes en Argentina, Brasil, Bolivia y Perú. SBS Librería Internacional crece cada día desde 1996. Hoy somos una de las cadenas más grandes en Sudamérica, orientada a producir y distribuir libros y materiales especializados en la enseñanza de idiomas. Nuestro propósito es contribuir en el quehacer educativo, profesional y cultural de nuestra comunidad. Nuestra propuesta de valor, orientada siempre al cliente, a la innovación y a la educación, nos ha permitido posicionarnos como una empresa que no solo facilita contenidos en diferentes idiomas a nuestros usuarios, sino que también nos convierte en un espacio donde se promueve el desarrollo profesional de los docentes, la generación y difusión de eventos académicos y culturales, convirtiéndonos así no solo en un lugar donde se pueda adquirir el libro deseado, sino en un espacio para estar, compartir y aprender. Con la finalidad de satisfacer los requerimientos de nuestros clientes y del mercado editorial, contamos con 16 librerías en todo el país y una renovada librería online en las que presentamos la más destacada producción e innovación editorial nacional e internacional. Somos conscientes de la repercusión de la tecnología en todo ámbito del conocimiento y la recreación, y por ello, SBS Online se posiciona como un potente canal de búsqueda y adquisición de material educativo y recreativo que permite acercar a nuestros clientes miles de títulos a pocos clics de distancia y desde la comodidad de su hogar. Nuestra propuesta editorial contiene materiales y contenidos por áreas temáticas. La enseñanza y aprendizaje de los idiomas inglés, portugués, francés, italiano, español, alemán, entre otros. La formación educativa y profesional cuenta con publicaciones especializadas, académicas y técnicas, libros de interés general con las últimas tendencias de la industria editorial, así como bibliografía clásica e imprescindible. Por todo este desarrollo e innovación corporativa, queremos compartir nuestra conmemoración. En este marco consolidamos nuestra presencia en Perú con librerías ubicadas estratégicamente en los departamentos de Lima, Cusco, Arequipa, Trujillo, Piura, Chiclayo, Iquitos, Huancayo. La librería SBS Online, servicios de delivery a nivel nacional, presencia en ferias virtuales del libro, así como presentaciones, streamings, conferencias online, concursos, promociones y sorteos, entre otras actividades. SBS Librería Internacional. Soluciones para quien enseña y para quien aprende.
Great video about SBS. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Cambridge University Press. And to know a bit more about them, please, I invite you to watch the next video. Please, let's go with Cambridge University. Team, let's go.
My English teaching materials, because they ask teachers like me from all around the world what we really need in the classroom, and we tell them. Hi Gina. Hi Maria. I'm able to provide them with a valuable insight that I get when teaching, which materials my students respond to best, as well as which materials help me most as a teacher. With Cambridge, my experience helps shape the world of English language teaching and develop positive experiences for learners.
At Cambridge University Press, we're responsible for all the teaching resources that teachers and their students will ever need. From printed course books, digital applications, videos, you name it. We deliver the tools that teachers need. We connect teachers and students around the world with the latest research and materials, building brighter futures together.
Here at Cambridge Assessment English, we produce the exams. Our experts access real test taker experiences to make sure we offer the best possible support on your exam journey. We carefully check all Cambridge official exam preparation materials to ensure accuracy and level. Just a few of the many reasons users put their trust in us. We collaborate with teachers like Maria and Cambridge University Press so that together we can provide the best resources possible.
Kirsten and I are based on the same campus here in Cambridge, which means we can work closely together to get the best results for teachers like Maria and her students. It's that close collaboration between Cambridge University Press,
Cambridge Assessment English, and teachers like me. That means we're all experts together.
Great video about it. Okay, now to begin the afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to welcome Cambridge University Press. So the next topic is in the charge of an international speaker, Juan Carlos Hidalgo, with the topic remote assessment. So let me give you a short information about Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos Hidalgo is a well-known teacher and a teacher trainer for his broad experience with children, teenagers, and adults. Well, he started teaching English at the early age of 14, and he is currently working at the Cambridge University Press Latam branch as a key account manager and digital specialist. Now, please, let's welcome to TDC Juan Carlos. Good afternoon, sir. It's all of you, please.
Good afternoon. How are you? Thank you for the invitation to be here with you today and share some time, some experience, some ideas with all the teachers that are attending. Thanks a lot, like I said, for the invitation. My name is Juan Carlos, and I've been working for Cambridge University Press for about 9 years now, and I started as a digital specialist, and right now I am also a key account manager. So today I have been invited to talk a little bit about remote assessment, and it's a very important and engaging topic now, because after we immediately when we started with this lockdown, I think we were not ready. Nobody probably was ready to teach online, and we had to do it. We had to make a decision today and start teaching tomorrow. So this was something that was really unexpected, and it shows that we are all resilient and that we are all, a teacher is, like I always said, teaching is the best profession because we are resilient. We always do whatever we need to do, even if we're not ready for it. Sometimes we have to deal with students, we have to liaise with people, we have to change our methods, our strategies, our techniques, and we still continue working. We never say no, even when we feel like saying it, when we want to say that, when our inner self wants to say no more, I don't want that, we still say yes, and we continue working. So that's why I'm very happy to be here today and having the opportunity to share a little bit of remote assessment and evaluation. So if we talk a little bit about assessment, and we concentrate on the verb assess, we look it up in the dictionary. It says to judge the value, quality, or importance of something. Okay? Now, if we change this verb to a noun and we make it assessment, I think that meant comes from improvement, it comes from enrichment, it comes from development, it comes from engagement, it comes from enhancement, it comes from amendment. Because we improve, we make the process of learning better, so we enhance it based on the information that we gather, we enrich it, of course, and we get our students engaged with the learning process. And we, of course, make amendments and changes, right? So if we take the MENT from improvement, enhancement, development, amendment, enrichment, and engagement, then I think that's really how the word assessment is formed. So let's talk a little bit about assessment today. I'm going to ask you to participate in the chat. I cannot see it, but we have our friend here that's going to help us little by little, I understand. Read a little the chat and what you say in it. So I would like you to tell me what's the correct option. Is it assessment for learning, or do we say assessment of learning? Which one is correct for you? That's my question. Can you tell me which one is correct? On the chat, please. Okay, 4, many people are saying 4. Thank you very much. Okay, and okay, if you think about it as a collocation, you say, is it assessment for learning, assessment of learning? And there's another one, there's assessment as learning. Okay, and the 3 are correct. Let me tell you, the 3 options are correct, but today I'm going to talk about the 2, yeah? For and of. Assessment of learning, is that correct? Yes. Assessment of learning, is that correct? Yes, but what does it mean? Okay, let me tell you something. I love cooking. I love eating. I love Peruvian food. I've been in Peru, and I love it. And why am I saying this? It's because I'm going to illustrate it a little bit with food, with cooking. I want you to pay attention to the two pictures that I'm showing you right now. Okay, the 2 pictures you have, there's one chef. There's a chef cooking, apparently. On the other one, there's someone tasting the food, right? With these 2 pictures, I want to illustrate assessment. How? Like this. If we talk about the first picture, that is formative assessment. Okay, I will explain why. We call it formative assessment, or we can also call it assessment for learning. Okay, look at the other picture in which the guy is eating something, and that is summative assessment. That is assessment of learning. Okay, so again, in the first picture, the chef is cooking, and that is assessment for learning. In the second picture, the guy is tasting the food, and that is summative assessment. Paul Black, a teacher from King's College in Cambridge, says that when the cook tastes the soup, that's formative assessment. Okay, and when the customer tastes the food, that's summative assessment. Again, when the cook tastes the soup or whatever he's cooking, that's formative assessment. Now, when the customer tastes the food or the soup or whatever it is, that's summative assessment. In other words, formative, if we are cooking, it's when I can add some more salt, when I can add some garlic. Yeah, I can make changes to make it better. Okay, but when the customer is tasting the food, there's not much I can do. If it is too salty, sorry, it is too salty. If we take it to assessment, during the process, we can do something. We can adapt our teaching, we can adjust it, we can make changes, add things, remove things, change things, because it is formative assessment. Okay? With summative assessment, there's not much I can do. That's a final test. My student has failed or passed, and that's about it. That's why I wanted to illustrate formative and summative assessment with the two pictures that we just saw. Okay, so if we talk, this is my next question, and I want you to please tell me something on the chat. I want you to tell me something, okay? But don't forget, whenever you have to talk about formative assessment or summative assessment, remember the food. If you're from Peru, remember Peruvian food. It's delicious. Remember las causas. Oh my God, that's delicious. Remember the food and illustrate it. Everybody will understand it. Okay. Now, I want you to tell me, now that we were forced, let's say, to teach online, which type of assessment is, let's not say better, but it's the one we should be using? Formative assessment or summative assessment? Can you tell me that in the chat? Thank you for those comments. I'm reading those comments. Thank you very much for that. My pleasure as always. Now you tell me, which type of assessment is better? Formative assessment or summative assessment for teaching online? Formative. People are saying formative. Very good. Exactly. Yeah, formative assessment or assessment for learning. If you want to talk about formative assessment, you can also mention assessment as learning. Yeah, assessment as learning is when the student evaluates himself or herself, okay, and then makes changes to continue learning. So assessment for learning is formative. Okay, assessment of learning is summative. And we also have assessment as learning, in which we include the learner in the formative process. Okay, great. So let's continue. A little bit of formative and summative. Okay, formative assessment helps students learn. In a few words, formative assessment focuses on the process of learning. Summative assessment focuses on measuring the results. Right? In formative assessment, we help students learn. We identify misconceptions in a timely way. Okay? We incorporate feed forward. What is feed forward? You have heard feedback. We all have. Feed forward also exists. Feedback and feed forward. Okay, remember those two words. I can explain a little bit later if you want. Yeah. The formative assessment focuses on areas of improvement. And that's really, really important. We do something when we can do something. Okay, we don't wait until the end of the process when there's not much we can do. Okay, when the student has already failed and there's not much we can do. The summative assessment, it identifies how much has been learned. Okay, so I make a decision. Yes, you know, and you pass, or you don't know and you fail. Okay, it usually generates marks, points, scores. It can be difficult to incorporate in module feedback because there's not much we can do now. Yeah, and it assesses progress against goals. So formative assessment focuses on the learning process. Summative assessment focuses on measuring what has been learned. Okay? So you were all right when you said, yeah, our assessment now has to be formative. We have to focus on formative assessment, definitely. And when we talk about formative assessment, if we're going to talk about formative or summative assessment, then we have to think about two types of tests, if you want, two types of assessment, two types of activities, of tasks. So when we talk about formative assessment, we talk about high stakes. I'm sorry. When we talk about formative assessment, we talk about low stakes. Okay? We talk about summative assessment, we talk about high stakes. So we have low stakes and high stakes. Okay? I don't know if you have heard about that, but low stakes are a type of tests or activities that don't really help us make a decision of a student passing or not passing. Yeah? Formative assessment is closely related to low stakes. Okay? Type of evaluation in which I gather information. They can be, if you want to make it formal, we have quizzes, online activities, class activities, which can be online or in class. If we talk about informal activities, we have informal questions through a chat, orally, small competitions. Okay? So low stakes are a type of tests that don't really help us make a decision about the student passing or failing. Okay? Those are high stakes. High stakes, they allow me to make decisions. Okay? They are like a final exam, an international exam, a project, a portfolio. That's summative. That's high stakes, because based on that score, I can make a decision if my student passed or didn't pass. Okay? So formative assessment is related to low stakes activities that don't let me make a decision. Summative assessment is related to high stakes, yeah, which allow me to make decisions. All right? So what are we going to see today? We are going to see a little bit of formative assessment. Although both formative and summative assessment, they work well in tandem. When the outcomes of a formative task produce feedback to help the student to succeed within the module and across the course, okay? They work connected, no? Formative assessment, it allows me to make changes, it gives me information, okay? And then summative assessment, it will just give me the result of all the process, okay? But given the situation we're going through right now, we need to focus on formative assessment. And what does it mean? Simply, it means gathering or taking advantage of every single opportunity to gather information. Okay? Here, if we want to use formative assessment, then there are a couple of things that we need to do. Okay? First, we need to identify every single opportunity. But I would say take advantage of every single opportunity during your teaching, during the process, to gather information. Whatever you do with your students or whatever you have your students do will allow you to gather information. Okay? And then, of course, you will be able to reflect on that information. Yeah, when I gather the information, I can reflect on it. I can reflect on the evidence. Okay, if I reflect on the evidence, what I need to do is identify if there are gaps between my students' performance and the desired goals. Yeah. So I gather the information and I reflect on that information that I gather from my students to identify what's going on. If there are gaps between where I thought I would be right now, okay, and where I am. So I wanted to be here at this stage, but I'm here. There's a gap. Okay, that's what I do in the reflection. Okay, and with all that evidence, I can consider the next steps. What is that? I can adjust my teaching. I can make the changes. Okay, that's why it's very important to gather information from my students. And that doesn't happen with exams only. There are many other ways for us to gather information. And I'll give you some examples. This is a little bit of theory, okay? Might be a bit tiring if you want, but I want us all to have a clear idea of where we're going. So in a couple more minutes, we'll be doing activities, okay? So when we adjust our teaching, we make changes, okay? We can continue encouraging our students to get involved in the teaching process, okay? We can even have students evaluate themselves. And remember, that is assessment as learning. Yeah? How do we encourage student involvement? First, celebrating learning. That's very important, to take every opportunity to tell our students, great, that's fantastic. Okay? Of course, not when they make mistakes. Okay? But we have to go with positive feedback first, and then we can talk a little bit about things that are not so well. Okay? We can invite our students to share what they have learned with the rest. So it's great to ask the question, okay, so what did we learn today? Why don't you tell me in the chat what we learned today? And your students will tell you a couple of the good things. Okay? So in order to use formative assessment, well, we take every single opportunity to gather information. We check, we examine that information, we reflect on it in order to consider next steps, which is adjust my teaching. Probably I should I should teach this, I should talk a little more about this, I should give this as extra material for my student to check before the class, which is the flipped approach a little bit. Okay? And that will help you encourage students to get involved. Okay? You are fine-tuning your teaching all the time, but based on information. Okay? So this is how it goes. And what we're going to see, we're going to be doing some activities on today. Presented in another way, we establish learning goals. Remember when I said that you have to identify gaps between your students' performance and where they should be at the moment. So here's the gap. Okay, then we provide learning opportunities. Okay, opportunities and tools for them to get the knowledge. Then we assess the learning. Okay, but I don't want to say then and then and then and then, because we're gathering information all over, I mean, all throughout the process. Okay, and then use those results to fine-tune my teaching and continue. All right? Cool. Time to start with some activities, and I want you to use the chat. Okay? Thank you very much. Those comments are fantastic. Thank you, thank you. I love doing training. It's a nice part of my life. There are two things that I love. One is teaching and training, and the other one is cooking. Now I'm doing what I like. So thank you for all those comments. And I'm going to start with activities, okay? I think, and remember, I work for Cambridge University Press, so I probably shouldn't be saying what I'm going to say, but I want to be honest. The book is a guide, okay? So if I'm a good teacher, doesn't matter which book I have, it will just be a guide. I will do the rest. Okay? That's why I think a teacher will never, ever, the role of a teacher will never, ever be replaced. Ever. Because we are the ones that complement the teaching process. And this is an activity that I chose, let's say for B1 plus B2 group of students, okay? And I want to share this with you today. So, what do I want to evaluate today? Do I want to focus on skills? Which skill? Do I want to focus on systems? Which system? Okay, so I have to identify that first. Let's talk about skills. If I want to practice writing, for example, then I can use the following activity and ask my students to answer in the chat. Okay, so I need to have control, and that's probably one of the first steps that I forgot to mention at the beginning. Online classes, online assessment, or remote assessment, if you want to call it, are very important. But the first step, and this is something I learned when I did a course on online teaching, my instructor used to say, make sure students understand that the connection is human to human. Not because I'm using my computer or my tablet, it's machine to machine. It isn't. The connection is human to human. So it's very important to share cameras or whatever, but you're the one that has the control. So right now, I am going to allow the chat, for example, and I'm going to ask my students to answer on the chat. If I want to practice speaking, then I tell my students, all right, if you want to answer, raise your hand. Okay, I'll activate your mic and then you'll speak. Okay, so this class is about, listen to that, this class is about English idioms, okay, and we're going to see a little bit of that. This is really passionate, I love it. Like I said, B1 plus B2 level, okay, and you are going to use the chat, remember, okay, remember. What are we going to do? You don't see anything on the screen right now, but I am going to show you a picture, okay? I am going to show you a picture, and you are going to tell me the phrase or the idiom, okay, that comes to your head on the chat. Okay, remember, on the chat. So if I show you this, let's make it the example, yeah? This is the example. What is it? It is piece of cake. Okay, so that's the expression, piece of cake. Okay, when do we say piece of cake? When something is easy. Now that's a piece of cake. Okay, that's a piece of cake. That was the example. That was the easy one. Okay, so let's move on. On the chat, I want you to tell me the idiom or the expression, if you want to call it, that comes to your head when you see the picture. What is the expression that comes to your head when you see the picture that's there right now? Okay, who can tell me? Exactly. Anja is saying raining cats and dogs. Fantastic. Fantastic. It's raining cats and dogs. Okay, that's an expression. When do we use it? When it's raining very heavily, right? And here comes another thing. you're practicing you're practicing writing, and I want you to relate it to your mother language. Okay? I can ask right now a question. Can you tell me, what do you say in Spanish, in your mother language? What is the expression that you use to say this? Can you put it in the chat? The expression that you use in Spanish to say the same. Listen, I am not asking you to translate. Yeah? Somebody says here, Natalie says, llueve a cántaros. Fantastic. I have heard, se está cayendo el cielo. Very good. Excellent. You see, I am not promoting translation. I am just making sure my students understand what an expression is. Yeah, I am not promoting translation. Okay, that's very important. Llueve a cántaros. It's pouring. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, something that I didn't understand, and here comes a little bit of, socializing if you want, which is fantastic in a class to keep your students engaged. An expression that I heard in Spanish. Well, it was drizzling one day. Yeah, it was starting to rain, and somebody said, ¿Por qué lloras? Why are you crying? And I was like, what? I'm not crying. But I learned that that's an expression that they use when it's starting to rain. So I didn't understand that very well, but anyway. So you see, I am not promoting translation, but I'm asking my students, especially in this case when we have more than one country involved, how do you say that in your language? Okay, so somebody says está cayendo un palo de agua. Wow, I haven't heard that one. Good, great. Okay, and the first one that I piece of cake, somebody says pan comido. Fantastic. I've heard somebody say papayas. That's papayas. Yeah, so good, fantastic. So another one. What is the expression here? What is the expression? I'll just have a sip of water. What is the expression here? Nobody's telling me in the chat yet. Can you tell me what the expression or idiom is? Very good. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Fantastic. Don't count the chickens before they hatch. Thank you very much. Thank you. Fantastic. Very, very good. Thank you. I see you all are engaged. And you see, with this activity, I have my students here and I have them engaged because they're participating. I am gathering information because I have a little piece of paper on the left with the names of my students. And I'm probably drawing a little line next to the name of the ones that participate. Yeah? Another one. What is this one? Okay, we're in the next one. Thank you very much. What's this one? Can you tell me on the chat? I'm showing the other one right now. This money bag, X, a little plant, and a tree. Money, very good. Thank you. Money doesn't grow on trees. Fantastic. Money doesn't grow on trees. Very good. Somebody said monkey. That's just a typo. I know it's money. Yeah. Thank you. Money doesn't grow on trees. And another one? And another one? What is this one? Okay. I'm showing you an index finger, moon, that looks like the moon in blue. What is this one? Yeah, blue moon, says somebody. But what is the expression? What is the expression with the moon? With a blue moon? Somebody says blue moon only, but I want you to tell me the expression. Yeah, Miriam says once in a blue moon. Yes, once in a blue moon. Fantastic, everybody. But here, you can also do something else. I can also have my students explain. Yeah, once in a blue moon. What is once in a blue moon? And I can combine this, and I can activate somebody's microphone and say, what do you think once in a blue moon means? Yeah, and they will, of course, I can have people that, those who know participate so everybody understands. So somebody will say, once in a blue moon means almost never. Okay, very good. And how do you say that in Spanish? Yeah, because in Spanish, you don't say una vez en una luna azul, right? What's the expression in Spanish? So I can promote conversation, yeah, and continue, working on the same. Very good. Rara vez, raramente, almost never. Fantastic. And one more. You know what? I'm going to give you the answer quick. I am going to go to my next slide because I want to do another activity, and I'm not going to do the last one because I'll show it to you later. You will see what I'm going to do, yeah? You will see what I'm going to do. Okay, I skipped a little bit. Here, I want to show you something else. If you want more resources, or you need to find, if maybe you're not using a platform in your school. If you are, fantastic. Cambridge has beautiful platforms, okay? But you can go here. This is Cambridge Assessment. They have like 200 activities online. So here's the link at the end. I'll share it with you, okay? And you can just click on search here. And look, you can decide which skill, which level, and the time that you want the activity to take. So you can do grammar, maybe let's say proficient level, and I want a short activity because I don't have too much time. So 0 to 5 minutes, and then you just continue. And the system will show you the activities. Look, here, this one is level A1, A2, takes between 0 and 5 minutes, and it's about vocabulary for the house and home. Yeah? So look, you just apply the filter that you want, and you'll have a great many options of activities to do. The student will do it, like this one. It's free, completely free. Then they get a report. They can send this to you. Okay? This is assessment. Okay, this is assessment. And you have to tell your student, please make sure you send me the first score that you get. No, that's not what we want to tell our students. This is formative assessment. Telling my students, you only have one opportunity and you have to send me the first score that you get. That is the old school, 50-year-old school. Okay, now, the main goal is for our students to learn. So you can tell your students, please make sure you get 100, even if you have to repeat it 3-4 times. Okay, so you give them the link, they choose the activity, or you choose it for them, they do it, and here's the completion report. Okay, so that's very important that you have more resources to use in your class. You can also open this, any activity, and you can give access to your students. Okay, you can choose one of the students at random. You can give them access to your screen so they can manage your screen and they can do the activity live for everybody to see. That is formative assessment. Okay. Now, unfortunately, time flies, and I have less than, let's say, I think I have like 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes, and I want to show you something. Of course, quizzes, I bet you know it, but you can just take a screenshot if you don't know it, so you can check it later. But I want to show you something. You are seeing this presentation on your screen, I'm sure. I want you to use your cell phone. On your cell phone, go to the Google bar and just type in this, testmos.com/2095479. Okay? I repeat, go to Google or to the, the email address, the website bar, and type in testmos.com/295, 2955479. Okay, and it will take you to a test. Okay, just a nice test that I wrote before the session. This is just as simple as this. Okay. So type in testmos.com/2095479. It will ask you for your name. Type in your name, just your first name. That will do. And then when it asks you for password, type in cup.peru. Okay, cup.peru, capital letters. Okay, and I want you to do that test as quick as you can. The test has 7 minutes. Yeah, supposedly you have 7 minutes to do the test, but I will give you a little less. Let's say I'll give you 3 minutes because it's quick. Yeah, just quick. And you see, you can do it on your cell phone, you can do it on your tablet, you can do it in your computer. It's just testmos.com/2095479. The password is cup.peru, capital letters. Okay? I want you to do this one. And the nice thing here is that I am going to see the results. Yeah? I am going to see the results here online, quick. Yeah, I'll show you. I'm opening it here. I think I have it already opened. Okay. And I am going to see the results here. Okay. So I would really like you to do it so we can see it, yeah? I'm going to see results here. In case you haven't seen it, I'm going to put it on the screen now. Again, this is the link to the test. You can just type it in quick. And this is the password. Okay? The password, Magali, is cup.peru. Okay? So try to do it, and I am going to see if you're doing it. I'm going to see results. Yeah, I have results. Fantastic. Thank you. You can see them on my screen right now. Yeah, I have results here. Okay. And this is a free version. I don't know if you have seen Testmos before. All you have to do is go to Testmos. You don't create an account. Yeah, you just create a test. Okay, you give the name to your test. Then you decide, you just type in the questions. And when, look, I have a lot more results. Fantastic. Thank you for participating. Yeah. You decide the name of the test. You add the questions. If you want to set a password, you do a password. Yeah, I'll show you what it does. Yeah. So here's my test. Look. And first you adjust settings, edit questions, you publish your test, and that's it. The free version allows you like 50 questions, I think, and 100 takers. So you have a lot. Then the settings. Look, here, name of the test. You can give some information on the test. You decide question settings, if you want to randomize the questions. Yeah. Look, everything. Who can take your test? Anyone or anyone who enters a password? Look, here's the password. You see? Everything is here. Of course, you can have people enter a unique identifier like an ID number. You can also request email address, but if you do this, then you need a paid version, yeah? So don't do that. You can do it with the first two options, okay? Then you decide questions. What types of questions do you have? Multiple choice, fill in the blanks. Okay, here's my questions. And then you publish it. It gives you the link and the passcode. And this you share with your students. You set a time limit if you want. You can export the test and print it if you want. And then here's the results. Look, I have lots of results now. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And it's beautiful because you can see the correct and incorrect ones here. And you can see the answers if you want. Look, the answers that are correct and incorrect. This you can download to an Excel file and you have your scores. The secret to a good test is not to make it look like a test, but as a nice activity. Yeah? Let's do some activity. I want you to do this activity and forget about the word test, and you won't have cheaters. Okay? So that's very nice. Okay? That's, in my humble opinion, the nicest way to do a test. You can have your results there and you don't have to pay anything. Okay? Just as simple as that. Okay? Tell me on the chat if we have, and if you want, can we add images? That depends. Somebody said, but there are too many messages. So can we add images? Huber said that. I'm going to show you another one, and that's why I wanted to ask, would you like to see another one to do tests? Let me show you another one to do tests. On your cell phone or on your screen, all you have to do now is go to Socrative Student, okay? On your cell phone, go to Google and type in Socrative Student, okay? Socrative Student, just like this, Socrative Student, yeah? Type in the two words, Socrative Student, okay? And you don't need, of course, there is an application, yeah? But don't download the application. Go to the straight link, yeah? It says Student Socrative, Socrative Student, okay? Let me show you, yeah? I want to make it hands-on. So you would have to go to, in Google, Socrative Student. Okay? And when you're here, if you're doing that on your cell phone, it will show you the application. Don't go to the application, go to Student Login directly. And it will ask you for a room name. Okay? And when it says room name, please enter this information. Yeah? This is Hidalgo 4002. Okay? Hidalgo 4002. And I'm going to Socrative. I am the teacher in this time. I'm the teacher. So I am going to share a test with you. Yeah, I have my tests here. Look, I have quizzes here. I have 3 tests. Okay, and I'm going to share one with you. Okay, so I can launch my test as a space race. So I am going to do it as a test. Yeah, remember, once you are in Socrative student, you have to enter the room name. The room name is this one here, Hidalgo 4002. Okay? And when you're there, I am going to, wow, I have lots of people here. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to share my test on idioms so you can see that we can add images. Idiom short test, and next. And look at the option. It says teacher paste. Why? Because you're going to do it under my control. So we're starting. Okay? I have released the first question. What am I doing? I am doing the activity that I did, but now as a test, and it is controlled. I want you to look at my screen. Yeah? And look, it says that 11, 12, 14, blah, blah, blah students answered out of 87, out of 91. Great participation. Thank you. Out of 104 people, 60 have answered so far. You see? That's what I want you to see. Okay? Very important that you see this. Out of 109 people that I have in right now, 87 have answered. So you can tell your students, how about the rest, please? How about the rest? Okay. I am going to give you 10 more seconds and I have to go to the next question. Those who answered, the students, in this case you, those who have already answered, you cannot see the second question. Why? Because you just see, I don't know, something, a notification there that says you have completed this activity. Wait for the next activity. Yeah? Why? Because this is teacher paced. I control it. So I'm going to do something with the next question. I'm going to tell you. For the next question, which I am going to release in 5 seconds, I am going to count to 10. I count to 10 and I go to question number 3. So you have 10 seconds to answer question number 2. You see? And if I don't release question number 2, you cannot see it. So it's teacher paced. You decide, you play, you keep people engaged. This is Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. and I have people engaged here because it's how we do it. Yeah? 10 seconds. Here's the next question. 10, 9, 8, just to give you a little stress. 6, 5, 4. Only 10 people, 20 people have answered. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to the next question, and you cannot see. Now you cannot see the previous question. You are in the question that I am showing you. Those who didn't answer the question, sorry. You see? So you keep your students busy. You keep them engaged, okay? You keep them engaged. I'm sure my partners, they want to kill me now because I'm taking too long. Sorry, but this is nice. I know people are having fun while they're learning. I have 153 people taking a test, and I'm going to question number 4. Look, question number 4. Yeah? Everybody right now is on question number 4. And this is the one we didn't answer when we did the activity. Yeah? Because I wanted you to do it here. And I'm going to go to question number 5. Everybody's on question 3 right now. Sorry, question 4 right now. You cannot see the next one or the previous one because it's teacher paced. I repeat. And this is all free. You see? Next. True or false? The idiom is, if you want to have money, plant trees. Wow, lots of people answering, almost 160 people there. Thank you very much for that response. Thank you very much. This is really nice. Really, really nice. I could do this again and again with more ideas. Okay, and now I'm going to finish the test. So sorry, I want to finish the test. Okay. And here are the results. Look at this. And I am protecting my student's identity. Look. Yeah? If you want to see your student's name, here's the option. Look. Yeah? Here's the option if you want to see your students' names. And here you have correct and incorrect if you want. And you can export this. You can see the answers. Look. Yeah? Look at this. Thank you all for your response. This has been fantastic. Okay? So use this whenever you want. Okay? It will help you a lot to keep your students engaged all the time, to teach through fun activities, which is very important. If the brain is not engaged, the brain doesn't learn. Okay, so this is going to help you a lot with your students. So these are a few ideas. I know that I have broken a couple of rules because I was supposed to finish like 10 minutes ago, but I started a bit late. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to follow us, to take this this training. And I want to invite you all. We have our website, which is on Facebook. Well, you can find me as Juan Carlos Hidalgo Herrera on Facebook, but we also have our platform support Cambridge University Press page. You just have to answer 4 questions. You can have access, and you have units and invitations to all our events. So feel free to join us whenever you want. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And please, now you tell me how to proceed.
Sir, we have one question, please, because what we noticed, it was very interactive, and there is one question from one of our attendees. So the question is, what do you think, or what do you do with a student who is not interested in the games? What do you do with them?
Okay, I would say if a student is not interested in doing activities that will help him learn, then I present the activities as games. But if the student was brought up in a way that he doesn't like games to learn, then we might have to switch to the activity as an activity itself, not as a game. Yeah, I mean, they say, if my student is not learning the way I teach, it is probably time for me to teach the way they learn. Okay, lack of engagement has to do with a lot of things. Okay, because if I am engaged with my student, if I am as a student, I am engaged with what my teacher is doing, I will even take the time to do some things that I don't like that much. Yeah, my student doesn't like games. Okay, so I have to present the activity as an activity, not as a game, because that's an exception. With many other students, is learning by playing a little more. Yeah, there are many ideas now that you can get.
And just to finish, there is the last question is, do students play on cell phones? Is it possible to play on cell phones too, or only computers?
Of course, yeah, everything. Right now, everything works on cell phones. In fact, I have a session that is called from refraining the use of cell phones to negotiating the use of cell phones and mobile devices in class. Right now, if you think a little bit about 1 year ago, let's say 7 months ago, before this pandemic, your students were supposed to buy a notebook, a book, pencils and stuff, right? Now, what we call la lista de útiles is probably a computer with good internet connection, camera and sound, and if possible, a cell phone, because you will do many, many activities. What I have done right now is 2 or 3 activities on the cell phone, which can also be done on a desktop. So there are many activities to be done on computers and on cell phones, many activities to be done only on cell phones, many activities to be done on both. So there's a great many activities to decide and to choose from, yeah?
Excellent. And the last question is from Maria Lourdes. So she asked, to what extent games can promote critical thinking?
Excuse me, can you say again? You cut off a little.
Sure. Maria Lourdes asked, to what extent games can promote critical thinking?
Oof. I think that's a fantastic question, because we're talking about 21st century skills right now, and one of them is critical thinking. There are a bunch. Yeah, I could give a complete webinar and share at least 20 activities on the cell phone with games included that can promote critical thinking. Yeah, there are many that can do that. There are games of answering questions. There are tricky questions for students to think critically when they choose an answer. In fact, the last activity that we did promote critical thinking because I made a couple of them a bit tricky. Yeah. So it's not only about having activities or games that promote critical thinking. It's also that little trick that we can give the activity as a teacher, that little trick that we can give the activity to make it more, to make it promote critical thinking. Okay, it's just a matter of typing in games to promote critical thinking, and you will have a pretty big list.
Excellent, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate it and learn many things this afternoon. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, now we have the last presentation. So let me introduce you. We want to introduce and have a very welcome Collins Education UK Publishing House for their first participation in TDC. As you can see, this is the first participation in TDC. The next topic is in charge of prestigious editor and consultant Rebecca Adler with the topic making primary readers work online. Well, let me give you a short information about Miss Rebecca. Rebecca is an experienced ELT professional, a teacher trainer, author, presenter, series and development editor, specializing in very young learners, drama and stories. She's based in Brighton, UK. She's been in ELT publishing and education for nearly 20 years and has taught English and lived and worked in various English language projects in the UK. For example, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, Syria, Yemen, China, and Spain. She's co-director of her own company, Language Umbrella Limited. Well, Rebecca has love stories, plays and playing, and continually looks for ways to include this in language learning. She is a series editor for Collins' new ELT Paper Reader series. Now, please, let's welcome to TDC, Miss Rebecca. Good afternoon. It's all of you, Miss Rebecca.
Hello, welcome to my presentation. Thank you for having me today. It's meant to be afternoon for you, but it's actually quite late at night for me. So apologies if any of that slips through, that I'm starting to nod off in the background. Hopefully not. Okay, so making primary readers work online. As you kindly said, I am an author, teacher trainer, and most recently have been working with Collins Publishing House on their new EFL primary reader series, the Peapod Readers, for which I'm series editor. So I'm very excited about readers at the moment in primary, and the idea of how we can use these to promote learning at distance, learning online, which is obviously a major concern for all of us at the moment. How can we support our learners when they're not able to physically be in our teaching space with us? Okay, so how can readers help us? Why would we use them online? And when I sat down to think about this, I thought, well, really the answer is all the reasons that we use readers anyway, before we were pushed to look for online learning possibilities. Basically, readers should be engaging and stimulating for our young learners. They provide a very rich learning environment full of fun, energy. They change focus. They are, not course book, workbook, activity-led tools. There's something different. So they can provide an energy into that learning environment. They're enjoyable, hopefully. They mirror what a young learner is probably happy to do in their own first language, happy to do in their own time. Children generally love books and stories. They, out of choice, will pick one up to look through. They may have a time of day that may be bedtime, or after lunch that is story time. So we are mirroring an activity they would choose to do anyway. And although we're adding in the extra challenge that they're now doing it in English, hopefully it's a relatively enjoyable task. They're immersive. So there's an element of learning by default. When we get into a book, when we get excited about the story or the content that we're discovering, we are totally immersed and we enter that world and we allow ourselves into that world. And children may not totally forget they're doing it in English, in another language, but it may help them. That immersion may help them and give them what I call a foot in the door of learning. I think learning a language is hard. It's like a closed door, and anything we can do to open that door a little bit will help them. Okay. Readers should be varied. A good series will have a variety of books available, both in terms of level, but also in terms of genre, of topic, of characters, storylines, and therefore every reader, every learner should find something that they enjoy. So again, we know that some more reluctant readers, some more reluctant learners, those who are less motivated, those who are lower level, children that struggle, hopefully this variety means they can find something that will suit them. Also, readers do, of course, support the curriculum as a whole. They will anchor the vocabulary and the language that you are learning in class, presenting, or that you want learners to focus on. So they will really help them to consolidate the language they know and hopefully to slightly extend that language by seeing the structures and the words in various different contexts being used in different ways. They will support all the learning from a course book or from classroom activities if you're able to supply those. And they will show the richness of the English language. They will focus on learners seeing a variety of language used. They will focus hopefully on them hearing the sounds of the language and the rhythms of the language as well. Also, they can practice all the skills. Obviously, the most obvious one is that they will be doing reading, and they will hopefully be doing listening if they have an audio attached, and they will possibly listen to you reading the book to them, or an audio or a parent reading. So there's lots of listening that should be helping them with their pronunciation at the same time. And then if you think about the idea of reading as a shared activity, think of a book club. Books should be shared, talked about, discovered, discussed. So there are many opportunities when you're using readers to actually involve them in speaking activities. So we've got our reading, our listening with pronunciation, and our speaking. And then, of course, we can extend anything we do with readers to involve some element of writing too. There's lots we can do. So it's really important to see readers as a multi-skilled possibility for your classes, for your learners. And then I think we need to look at possibly one of the most important things about readers, especially at the moment, is that they can provide this connection. And when I say connection, I mean there's a level of connection where we're connected because we're reading the same book. So we're sharing an experience, hopefully an enjoyable experience. Either I'm connecting with my friends in class who are reading the same book, with my teacher, with a parent I'm sharing this with, whoever, I'm connecting. And that's a special time reading that book. But also, the stories and the concepts in these readers should encourage, should allow or enable your learners to connect with the wider world. And this has to be at the moment at the forefront of all educators' minds. How can we keep our learners connected, both to us, to their learning, and to the rest of the world? If they're not sharing a learning space, if they're not in the classroom with us, how are they going to learn how to interact with each other socially? How are they going to play out all the small dramas in their lives? How do we teach them those skills which we sometimes call soft skills or 21st century skills that are really important in terms of them working out how to function in the world around them, how to interact with each other, how to connect, and how to work it all out. And stories and readers can present them with situations and scenarios that allow them to see how these things are being played out, how situations can evolve and be resolved. And that's really, really important at the moment, I think, for young people, to look at other people's points of views, how characters react to situations they find themselves in, how to negotiate, find solutions, and also how to have fun and how to learn about things around them. So readers can reward a child's curiosity and their natural need to socialize and explore, and give them a perspective on the real world that at the moment they may not find easy to get. And ultimately, I think readers can play a part in producing global citizens, and that is what we want them all to eventually be. Okay, and of course, something that is also key when we're looking at online or distance learning is the idea of autonomy. And readers magically offer us an easy way of promoting autonomy. Learners can be asked to go and read a book either on their own as a first reading or as a subsequent reading after they've listened to it, read by you perhaps, or shared it if you have any classroom time. So they can be supported and scaffolded to go on and be autonomous, or they can almost begin to be autonomous. They can read a reader anywhere, at any time. And that gives them a lot of autonomy. Where do you want to read this book? Do you want to read it on the bus? Do you want to read it when you're snuggled up in bed at night, at the kitchen table? Do you want to read it in the morning after breakfast or after lunch? What do you want to do? In the garden, perhaps? There's lots of ideas. So we're small steps, paso a paso, teaching them to think about their learning, what works for them, how they like to learn, in what method this works for them. So a little bit of autonomy can come in. Even in secondary school, I'm finding that learners suddenly have been asked to step up and completely take control of their learning in a very autonomous way, and they are struggling. I'm finding throughout the ages a real problem. So anything we can do to encourage, and the earlier we can encourage some autonomy, I think it's going to be much better for this generation of learners. And I'm quite positive that that might be one of the outcomes of the situation we find ourselves in currently, that this goes some way to helping produce those autonomous learners. Let's hope. And then readers, of course, are also quite challenging. And that's partly because of the autonomy of you're doing something on your own, a lot of it on your own, and because they do have that richer language, that wider context than they may have seen in their course books or in their classroom activities. But they're challenging in a good way, and they will help learners to progress. And it will become easier as they go through the levels. Also, I should mention that readers can, and this in particular links to Peapod readers, also helps our learners who are working towards exams. Because readers, again, a good set of readers should be linked to an exam syllabus in terms of their word lists and their structures. So there's a lot of repetition, a lot of chance to see, observe that language in action. And we'll talk a bit more about exam focus a little bit later on. But okay, so I'm sure there are lots of other reasons you may think of why we can use readers online and why maybe we should try. But yeah, feel free to tell me later what you think. So in terms of choosing a reader, because there are a lot of readers out there and some very amazing readers, but how do we work out what's going to motivate, challenge, but also support our learners? An obvious point is that if a book is not age and level appropriate, that is not going to engage or motivate our learners. We don't want books that are too easy or feel that too babyish for our young primary learners. We want them to be, and equally something that is about teenagers might be very boring for a 7-year-old. So age and level appropriate. And because of that, you're going to need to have quite a wide variety of books at your disposal to choose from. I I would say if your children are working towards exams, then you really do want readers that are exam relevant. As I mentioned, that's to do with being based on word lists and structures, and increasingly exposing learners to these so that when they see those words or those concepts in the exams, they're familiar, or as familiar as they can be to them as they move up through their reading levels. So we need to think about individuals, obviously, in our class, and how everyone will have a different criteria of what a good story or good content actually means. But equally, that's what we're looking for. And this means good authors, it means interesting storylines, non-fiction books that have a wide variety of content on many different topics. And then that means that there's a certain flexibility for you as a teacher to take into account the different learning needs, the diversity of your class. In readers, we move away from the kind of course book story, which course book stories are brilliant. There are lots of amazing course book stories out there. But in general, a course book story, its primary concern, its primary objective is to present a certain piece of language or set of vocabulary in a way that learners will recognize the form and the use of that. So it will be repeated, repeated, repeated. And that is the primary objective of a course book story. And some of them are absolutely amazing. But what a reader can do is, yes, it can use these structures and these lexical sets, but it has a freedom to go a bit further. So you really are providing a much more enriched reading environment with them, hopefully, in a good reader. The language will take a back seat. The story will drive our motivation for reading. Alongside that, I think it's important to think about illustration as well. Readers should appeal visually to our learners, especially at these low levels where a lot of their understanding, their comprehension of a story or a text will be through those illustrations. And, you know, we all know our children have favorite storybooks, and it's often to do with what they see in the pictures. And that will change between learners, between class groups, between age groups of what they find appealing. But you want to be looking for that good story, good visuals, good content in a non-fiction book. And alongside that is the natural language. As I said, there is a big difference between a course book story and a reader. And a reader, whilst working within the parameters of the level of our students, the language level, and the structures they will recognize, should feel natural when it's read or when you listen to it. There should be a natural flow, a natural rhythm that you may find is not as obvious in other reading texts that they're coming across. Okay. I do think that a reader should speak to, it says to the reader, to the child, to the learner. And that means, I think, making readers very familiar, if you like, or recognizable, perhaps is a better word, to our learners. So the world they see is something they can hook onto, a character they can say, oh, I see that, I recognize that, for example. Being away from the classroom, they need to engage. So they need to open that book. And again, the door needs to have opened. And by recognizing a situation or a setting in a book, that again will help them. It gives them a foothold in that door of learning English or practicing English. You could get them to choose their own readers, to see what appeals to them, have a little look, maybe look at the covers, maybe open up and look at the front 2 pages, the opening spread. You know, does this appeal to you? Does this speak to you in some way? Does it look like the book that you'd like to read? And if it doesn't, then maybe it's not the right book, especially if you're asking your learners to read at distance. It's very different from you reading a book to the class in the classroom. So they have to be engaged. They have to want to read that book. So look for readers that are child-centered, with situations learners can recognize, where they recognize something in the characters and how the characters behave and can relate to them. Okay, oops, sorry, do that. So for some children, this recognizable aspect might be wanting to read a series of readers that have the same characters throughout. So we meet a child, a family. Here we have some siblings, a brother and sister, and we meet them at the lowest level, and then throughout the levels, they appear in different books. So what happens is I show them the cover of one of these books and they'll say, oh, it's, in this case, Mac and Ivy, and I know them, and I know where they live, I know who they live with, I know what they like, I know the things they might say or do, how they might react to something. And again, you've opened that door for them. Those characters make them feel safe and secure and ready to read. So you might feel that your learners, your class will benefit from kind of going on their reading journey with this set of familiar characters. But you must remember that for some children, that repetition might feel more boring, that, oh, it's them again. And it might not hold their interest as they grow up, as they explore more of the world around them. So you might find that the way to choose a reader for some of your classes or some of your reading groups is to look at what actually interests them. What do you know about them? What hobbies do they have, interests? What have they been studying in other lessons, other subjects, perhaps, linking back to other curriculum topics? And so looking at topic and genre as well. Do my class prefer, or does this child prefer a fiction book or perhaps a non-fiction book? And so here you can see that I've got examples of 2 books, one fiction, one non-fiction, both about horses. One is about a horse riding club. So you may have learners who actually go riding, maybe even have horses. And one is just about horses themselves and how we interact with them. So children might find that more interesting. They might simply love animals and want to talk about animals. And it's worth talking, getting to know your learners, getting to know your classes and finding out what sort of things they're going to find interesting, and definitely linking to other things they've studied in other subjects, other parts of the curriculum that they may have studied in their first language. And that, again, because they've already got some knowledge, some understanding of the topic, opens that door. And again, this idea of what appeals to the learner. What is the approach like in the readers that you're looking at? Try to choose a reader where the approach is child-friendly, where something about the title or the opening spread excites a child, excites a learner, where it makes them ask a question or have an interesting thought or wonder about something to do with the topic or the characters or the setting. And that's quite important. So have a look at the books and see, is this engaging? Can learners recognize the situation and relate to it? Do the characters jump off the page to them? Do they want to know why they're doing this, what they're going to do next, who that is, why they're holding this thing? And those are the feelings and the emotions that you want when they are learning, when they're reading. Okay, and of course, involve your learners in this. You can ask them, you can hold up books, show them books. Hopefully they've got some books at home and say, have a look at just the cover or just the first 2 pages and tell me which books you think you'd like to read. And if you don't like this one, let's try this one. Okay. So this slide really is just a very, very quick look at the scenarios I think are relevant to our current teaching situation, teaching and learning situation. And so I'm just going to quickly go through what I personally see as the differences between them and therefore the challenges. So the first one is distance learning, by which I would suggest we mean where a child has no classroom interaction, is learning completely removed from that environment. They were away from their teachers, away from their classmates, possibly with parental support, hopefully with parental support, or perhaps a tutor who may or may not specialise in English. We don't know. They're possibly working on their own, and so will be quite limited in what they can do, where their motivation might be low. Their connection with you as the teacher might be very, very limited. With online learning, I would say it's a bit more like this. So there is some connection. There is maybe an actual live classroom that takes place where they can see me, the teacher, and I can speak to them, and maybe we can interact a little bit, and they get more input and more feedback. It may be that it's a recorded class that I can show them and they can watch and interact with. And then blended learning is really a combination of distance and online learning techniques, and if we're lucky, may involve a little bit of physical classroom time as well. And I've seen quite a lot of the blended learning happening over the last sort of year, which has its own challenges. I think at the moment, distance and online learning are also a main sort of scenario in many, many countries. Okay, so excuse me while I just turn a page. So we need to have systems in place that will keep our learners engaged and motivated in any 3 or a combination of these scenarios. So with readers, one way I think that's very nice way to use our readers is to set up a reading challenge for your class, for your learners. And this could be for your whole class, or you can set up different reading challenges for small groups. So if you need to address diversity in different levels or interests, then you can set up smaller reading challenge groups. It could even be individual for those children who need a bit more support or who need a bit more challenge. A reading challenge then, where I've got 6 book titles, you could have more, and a little visual where I've set up sort of stepping stones for them. It could be a path, it could be, I don't know, a tree with branches going up. It could be whatever visual you want it to be. But the idea of this reading journey, that they're going to go on, And here you can see I've chosen the books that I want my particular group of learners to read. But equally, you could leave these blank and really involve them in creating their own reading challenge path, which obviously needs to be level appropriate, but they could have a lot more of that autonomy, a lot more of that choice. I've got 6 books. Obviously, you can put as many or as few as you feel your children are capable of reading in a certain time limit. So perhaps that's a half term or a term, but you want this to be challenging but achievable. So yeah, creating a reading challenge for them. Make a copy of the challenge chart, make sure they have access to that. It could be that you email it to parents and ask them to print it out. Maybe they could stick it on the fridge. And every time a child reads one of the books, finishes the book, maybe they could put a little sticker over the title of that book to show it's been read. That's a very nice little way to keep parents engaged and involved. Equally, you could host it and keep it on a class website, a school website, so that they can see the journey that's up there. Okay. So bearing in mind that at home with young primary learners, we kind of need, and we're really hoping that there is some parental support. Otherwise, this challenge becomes very challenging, not undoable, but very challenging. So it's important that we provide resources that parents or children who are working on their own are completely supported and guided in how to approach each reader. And of course, the most obvious, I think, is probably audio support. Particularly important for parents who really don't speak any English or just aren't confident or comfortable reading in English to their child, and for children whose level of English is really quite low. And obviously audio support, again, will support their learning of pronunciation and that hearing of that rhythm in English. So audio could be pre-recorded that comes with your readers. Equally, it could be me, you, reading the book and recording it for our learners to watch and listen to. Okay. And then a guide of actually how do I approach this book? You've given me a book, I've read and listened to the story, but what else do we want parents and children to do with it? So they need some sort of guidance. So to maximise the reading experience for our learners, to be able to involve all those multi-skills that we talked about in using readers, of why we think readers are good to use, we need to supply a step-by-step how-to guide, really, for them. And as you can see here, we begin by sort of focusing on things like the cover and the first couple of pages. How do I enter the world of the book with my child? How do I elicit them to ask questions about the book, to predict what's going to happen in the book? How do I prepare them for various words, language, settings they might see in the book? And we want to help them to open the book, help the child to access that book. Basically, setting the scene, activating their brains, and encouraging and motivating them to go on and read the rest of the book. It's nice if we can supply a personal question as well that involves those slightly higher order thinking skills, because one of the problems often with online or distance learning is that we so need to get the actual learning in to that child's brain that we don't have time for the other parts of learning that are about expanding your thinking and really taking time to consider something. And that is kind of possibly going to be lost if we're not careful. And with readers, if we give parents, some personal questions, just one to ask, then we are helping to keep that critical thinking, that higher order thinking skill activated. Okay, so we've got, this before reading. Oh, sorry, we go back. And then we need to help them deal with after reading. So they've read the book with their child. What comes next? So often we want learners to focus on keywords that they've seen, because these readers are obviously meant to promote their English, and there might be a lexical set or key story words that we really want to know they've understood and that they could then use to talk about the story. Obviously, we want them to be able to hear those words, to isolate them, to associate them with an image, but it's nice if we can also give parents another idea, maybe a game to play with them, maybe a way of going back through the book to find them, or something else. So we want some fun activity that parents can do to practice keywords from the book, or key structures as well. Then we also want to look at comprehension and understanding of the story or the topic of the book. So we want to give parents an idea of how to work with little simple activities that will just test that their children have understood the English of that book. And we probably need to give them some answers, because again, our parents who do not have particularly good English may struggle with this. So again, they need that little bit of help. As we've already discussed, we also might want to use our readers to work on practicing and preparing for our exams. In this case, it might be the Cambridge Starters and Movers I'm looking at personally here. And we want them to practice listening and speaking, which is very hard to do at distance. It's very hard to do online, the speaking side of this. So what we can do is we can use our readers to prompt some speaking practice. You'll see here, this takes an image from a book, and we supply some questions, which are questions based on what they might come across in the exam that this book is level aimed at. And it will have a particular topic, particularly vocabulary focus. And here we've got quite a basic low-level book with basic sort of closed questions, yes/no questions, based on one image from the book. So here, a parent might be able to read those questions, or they can play an audio script, and the child is going to try to respond. At the beginning of their learning journey, this might be simply a physical response. It might be a or whatever. But hopefully that's going to grow as they get more confident, as their English improves, and they will be able to say yes, no, blue, red, 1, 2, or yes, I do, no, I don't. And hopefully we can take them and move them through this sort of extension with the same, practicing the same topics, reviewing the same language, and extending as we move up through their levels, through their progression in their reading challenges. So it's quite nice if we can show parents that there is a link to the exams here, and that there's that all-important speaking practice and listening practice for them. Okay. This one I just put on the slide here just to show you that a little bit of that progression that we've got. So the questions are slightly harder. Is the girl in the garden? Has she got a sandwich? The language has kind of gone up a bit, stepped up a bit. And the suggested answers that we have put here indicate that we're expecting the child to give a little bit more here, be able to produce a bit more language. And then you can see the last two questions actually ask for a personal response here. So this is what children will be asked to do in the exams. Will be asked to say something that is their own opinion or a fact about themselves, their lives, where they live. And so any practice, all practice they can get is really good. So here, this is quite autonomous. They don't need to have you in the room. They don't need to have even an English speaker as such in the room, but they can be practicing, and all based on what they've hopefully engaged with, hopefully enjoyed in the story. Okay. And then the final not the final really, one of the next parts that we want to give parents is something to do after reading. When we read with our children in general, we go back to that idea of the book club of what do we talk about afterwards? Do we go back through the pages and discuss what we saw, what a character did, what we learned on a page? So it's quite nice if we can give parents ideas of how to work with the book afterwards, some questions they can ask, some things they can point out to their learners. And also here, we can talk about how characters felt. We can come back to that idea of the social, personal, emotional health that, again, is so key at the moment. It's so hard for our learners to find the space to talk about these things. And topics that perhaps are more sensitive, more difficult to talk about, can be given some space here. So talking about how a character felt at different points in a story and why they did the things they did, and relating it back to the learners themselves. Would you have done the same thing? Would you have been happy? How do you do this? And because some of these questions can be quite challenging, I think it's fine here to say to parents, say to learners, to the children, it's okay to do this in your first language, because what we're doing is discussing the book and what you understood, what you thought about that book. And you've read that book in English. So I don't necessarily expect children to be able to respond and discuss it all in English. I mean, it's nice if they can do a little bit, but equally what's important is that general sharing, connecting to the book, discussing it, and that will help to consolidate all the English that they've seen and read and discovered in that book. It's important to give lots of ideas to parents on how that specific reader can encourage and allow the space for this. Equally, if you're in quite a blended learning context, or you're having very live classrooms with the learners, then obviously this is something key for you to think about, a good discussion of this book. And you can also put in parts of language here. You can ask them to find certain structures, find languages, look at a sentence and see what it's telling them. Equally, that works too. And then I think it's also nice if we give some extension ideas. And these extension ideas should and could and really work with that cross-curricular idea that we have with readers. So I've got 3 for you here. The first is kind of links to science, I think. The second one to technology. It's about taking selfies. And the third one is a creative writing extension. So maybe, you know, is where we get in some of our writing practice too. And it's very nice if we can extend and show children that the context and the topics link to other things. And all of these, they link to something within that story or within that non-fiction reader that they've just been thinking about and talking about, hopefully. A really nice way to use or to present these extension ideas is for you to actually do them yourself and to video or record yourself doing it, and then to somehow share that with parents and learners. So, for example, the experiment, I could video myself doing it and talking about it as I do it, and then challenge my learners, hopefully with some support from parents, to do the same. And if possible, to somehow share that back with me by videoing it, or if it's written, by uploading it to send me by email, taking a photo of something they've done and sending me that photo by email, some way that we can connect again with these extension ideas. And then, you know, when you hopefully get these, you've got a chance to say, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. You did so well. And you clearly understand the topic, or you used some really good English here. And again, we've got back to, you know, let's connect again. Let's find a way to motivate and engage and be together sharing something. And if you can, share these somehow so that other members of the class, other members of the school community can see them, then I think that's really lovely as well. And the activities that you suggest, they should obviously review the key language, if they can, from the topic, from the story or the content, and perhaps extend so that we've got different levels where different leveled learners can do a bit more or a bit less, depending on where they're sitting in terms of their English language journey. Okay. So that's kind of distance learning, possibly with that blended approach of a bit of online. Lots of support for parents, working with the books, and also for those learners who perhaps are either stronger in their English, slightly older, better at organising themselves, and maybe working on their own autonomously. But equally, what we don't want to lose in the current situation is this, this connection, if we can help it. And what I've found is that learners at home who are feeling quite weird about the world at the moment, they need to know you're still there. They, even at all ages, however good your materials are that you post for them, however good and involved their parents are, can still feel a disconnect from school, and that just tends to drop the motivation and the engagement. So what I've done here is I've looked a little bit more at the idea of online learning and how we can possibly try and put ourselves as teachers into a child's at-home learning space, their learning environment. So they can still see your face, they still feel you're there, that you're checking in, saying, well done, but also saying, ooh, hold on, I expect you to do this now, and I'm still here. So what I've produced here is I've produced a little video that I'm going to hopefully play you, assuming my technology works. And I've used two different platforms, the first two, Zoom and Loom, which you may well know, you may use already. There are other platforms available, and you may have others that you prefer to use. So I'm going to play, hopefully, this video, and then I will come back to you. So please bear with me one moment. Okay. I need to share my other screen, which is this one. Okay. Okay, so what I've done here is I have created a loom. Now, this is something you may or may not be familiar with, and it's just another tool that we have that we can use to try and make those connections with our learners when we're not able to be in the classroom with them. So I thought I'd have a play around and see what we could do to bring the readers alive and to replicate that classroom sort of dynamic a little bit with all the parameters that we have with online and distance learning. And as a parent, when my children were in lockdown quite recently, I found these Loom videos really, really helpful when teachers would do them, because the children felt that they were actually with the teacher, actually being taught, and that was really positive for them. So this is what I've played around with. What I've done, first of all, is I've just used Zoom, other platforms are available, to create a video of me reading aloud one of the stories like you might in the classroom. So looking at the cover of the book, taking time to talk them through it, having a look at the different pages and reading the story. Obviously, you can use Zoom to do this live or other platforms, but this is a recorded one. So this means that there's some autonomy. Parents can sit down and use it with their children when it's appropriate. And yeah, so it's quite a nice tool just to have them seeing you reading to them in English. So I'm going to play you just a little bit of that to start off with. Okay. So today I'm going to read on my sofa, and I'm not alone. I've actually got, you might be able to see, I've got my cat who is going to sit and listen with me. And the story that we're going to read today is called Climb to the Sky. So I hope you've got your book with you. If you have a look, follow along as we're reading. But let's have a look first of all then at the book. Let's bring it a little bit closer. There. So climb to the sky. Now, as you can see, it can be a little bit clunky. So you're having to move the screen a little bit. You're sort of trying to read the page while you're looking at it. And you'll see in a minute when I'm trying to do my lefts and rights, it gets a little bit confusing when I'm trying to point. But equally, what you are providing is something much more like a normal environment for them. And they're going to find that quite nice, I think, and quite cute. And they don't need it to be perfect. They don't need it to be like a TV program. They actually want to see you. And anything you might end up doing in a classroom, and you're probably more polished than I am, but that's fine. It looks fine because it's normal and it's natural and it's using language and it's communicating with them. So don't worry if your video doesn't look like it's been shot by a crack team of video producers, and like mine has its homegrown elements. I think if children are working remotely and are based at home, it's quite nice for them to see little things about you and your home, to say we're in this same situation and that's okay. So I included my cat. You don't have to, but it's just quite a nice little thing for them to see. Okay, so I'll play just a little bit more and then I'll show you a bit more about the loom. Okay, take me over here. How do you climb to the sky? Who have we got? I can see we've got two girls here. We've got, this is Bo. She's got brown hair. This is Pip. She's got black hair. So Pip and Bo, and can you see what this is? This is a hot air balloon. You might have seen hot air balloons. Very big balloon that goes up, up, up into the sky. And underneath, there's a basket. And people can sit in the basket, stand in the basket, and the balloon takes them up over the countryside, and they can look down and see everything below. So maybe in this story, Pip and Bo are going up in a hot air balloon. Let's have a look. Okay. So what's in this story? Okay, so on this page, I've got the option of I've recorded myself reading aloud these words and putting in some sound effects, you know, sheep there and a lion that children can join in with me and they can copy. Or I can use Loom to help me with this. Sorry, you can see a cursor on my head. So Loom is another free platform, and it allows me to put myself here in a bubble. And as I move along, I can move around as much as I want on the page to show what I'm looking at, get myself out of the way if I need to focus on a part of the screen, a different part of the screen. And it's quite funny for the kids. They quite like seeing moving teacher rolling around the page like this, where I might. And I can even take myself off the screen if I want to totally concentrate on the page or anything I'm doing on there. I can also make my image a little bit bigger if it's more important that you're focusing on me at this moment and what I'm telling you. Or if it's more important to look at the page, I can be a bit smaller. I could make myself the head of an elephant. I could cover a word with myself and say, can you remember the name for this animal? It's an elephant. I can make myself the bear. I can make myself the duck. Lots of things I can do by playing around with this, and I can totally focus children on where I want them to be and where I want them to be looking on the page. So I think this is quite a nice interactive tool. What I've done, as I said, is I recorded this Zoom and then I have played it using on my computer a VLC media player. So it's whatever media player your computer has would work. This is VLC. And when I play the VLC, I can stop and start, obviously, my Zoom video, and I can add Loom as a feature on top of that. So I've layered, if you like. So those are my 3 steps. You make the Zoom video, you save it and play it on your VLC media player or other media player, and then you attach Loom to it, saying that you want to use the window and the camera, and then you can annotate like this. Okay, so if we move a little bit on into the story, if I move my Zoom along, okay, so I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the next page, what I can see. And then, let's see, we start to read here. Our 2 characters, Bo and Pip. Okay, shall we start reading? Follow along while I'm reading. So here I'm going to want to move myself out of the way. I don't want to be on the
What's this,
text.
Bo?
Bo said, it's Grandad Pete's hot air balloon, Pip. Pip said, a hot bear balloon. Bo said, no, a hot air balloon. Pip said, what's a hot air balloon. So here I might want to pause, or if I've already read the story once, I might want to come back to this page, because what I've heard here is a sound that I might want to focus on. So we've got bear and air. And now this is where Loom is, I think, a really nice tool, because I'm afraid you can't see it on my screen, but I've got down one side a little menu that's giving me a pen, and I can choose different colours. So for example, if I choose a blue, I can come over here and I can draw or circle something on the text. And then, as you can see, it disappears. So I'm going to take another colour and go, can you say this word? Bear. There's another word on this page that rhymes with the word bear, but the spelling is different. Can you look and find the word that rhymes with bear? Okay, and then I can wait, allow my students a little bit of thinking time, and then I can say, okay, did you find it? We've got bear, and then we've got air. Bear and air. So I can practice some sounds. Equally, I could say, okay, what animal is this? Yep, it's a bear. Okay, and what animal is this? Yep, it's an elephant. Okay, I could say, let's all be Pip. Let's all say Pip's line here. Pip's thinking. What about this question? Would you like to go up to the sky? What do you think? Tell me, would you like to go up to the sky? Would you like to go up in a hot air balloon? I'd like to go up in the sky. I'd like to go up in a hot air balloon. I think it would be fun. Okay, so you've got these lovely tools that you can use just to either isolate things. If they had the vocabulary, we could say, you know, what's this? We can talk about the various things the characters are doing. I could even just say, who's this? Pip or Bo? And it gives us a very nice little interactive tool. Okay, I'm going to stop it there as I'm aware of time running on and just go back to my PowerPoint. 1 second. Okay, so that was a Zoom made into a Loom, and I'm aware I didn't really explain the technical know-how of how to create it, but there are very many tutorials online, and believe me, if I can do it, you can do it. So part of our online learning then is this connection, this interaction, it feeling a little bit more like I might be in the classroom with my teacher. And so then what can we do at distance, at online, to consolidate at the end? So what I've done here is I've done a small Kahoot for my class, for my learners. So again, I'm just going to change my screen so you can see my Kahoot. If you give me 1 second. Again, other platforms, other games, game making apps are available. This is just a Kahoot that I made called Peapod After Reading. And it basically is just going to help me see what my children have remembered, what my learners have remembered in terms of some basic vocabulary and maybe some basic facts or story comprehension. So each child, you send them a pin to join your game. You can see that up here, I can set how long they're available for them to play. So they could play in their own time, or if I'm doing a live session online, they can play competitively at the same time. So let's put in another student. Let's have Pam. and I'll just show you a little bit if I can. So the first question is a little quiz called What is this? And unfortunately, Pam got that one wrong. So you can see that I can place an image. I can grab an image from a photo or an online image that's available to me, and I can put it up there and then give them options of choosing the right word for it. And you could see there was a timer. So there's an element of competition and challenge, which obviously may not be suitable for some of your classes or learners, but a lot of children find it quite motivating. And we've only got one player here, Pam, but if I had more players, you'd be able to see where Pam is in relation to the other players. Okay, so very similar. What bird is this? And again, I can see Pam didn't really understand and still hasn't got anything there really. So you can see that Pam now is not in the lead. She's number 2. Okay, true or false is another activity type. Oh no, poor Pam, not doing very well. So unfortunately, her score hasn't moved. She's still going to be number 2 in this game. Okay, and the last one I've got up here, it tests more the idea of the concept or the facts that they've learned. Can they remember what was in the text? So again, a true or false, hippos eat grass. Hurrah! Pam got one right. Well done, Pam. And you can see that with that, she pushed herself up the leaderboard. So what's quite nice is that children can play as a class or in their reading groups. They can play against each other to see who is the best. They win points for the speed that they complete. If they get the correct answer, this speed. So whoever was fastest will go higher up the board. If that feels quite stressful for some of your learners, then you could, of course, put them into teams. And so at the end, when they've finished, you can add up the scores for the team members to find out which team overall won. And there will be at the end, when the game closes, you can see the names on the podium there. So that's quite a nice little way of interacting, getting them all back into a classroom dynamic, and a little bit of fun, a little bit of enjoyment, and also a way for you to see whether they have remembered, learnt where they are and what more they might need, or whether they can progress with their language. Okay, I'm going to try and bring you back to my PowerPoint, and if you give me 1 second, we're just going to look very briefly at where to go next. So we've presented the books, we've worked on the books, we've done some after reading activities, but what we do need to do is validate every child's reading of a book. They've tried, they've done their best, they've engaged, and we need to really say there's a reason why we do this. It's important. So a reading journal can be a really nice way, again, of engaging with parents, connecting with parents, involving them, and letting you know what's going on with that child and saying, I expect something here. Here I've just put together some columns of things that came to mind. You can customize it with whatever works for your particular group of learners. I do think it's nice to have date and parent signature, because parent signature again validates and involves parents in the learning. So they can sign to say, yes, my child read this book. Obviously book title. Fiction or non-fiction is quite nice. Get them to understand the differences and see which ones they liked more or less. I put it where I read it. I think this is really nice. Back to that idea of autonomy and flexibility. Did you read it in the bath? Did you read it in the garden, on the bus? And who were you with? Did you read it alone? Well done. Or did you read it with a parent or with me and the class? You know, how did you read it? Comment. I think perhaps the most important of all of these columns is comment. And of course, with young learners, this might just be a smiley face or a sad face. But equally, again, as they progress through their learning journey, hopefully those comments will become a little bit sort of longer, more extended. And again, you could choose to say they can write that comment in English or in their first language. I've got favorite word in a book or a new word I learned, favorite character, entirely up to you what to include. But if children put in the effort, if they write a reading journal, if they complete the reading journal, then what the column you do need is one that says teachers comment, because what's really key is that you show them you value their work, you read their work, and then you say, well done. So this can be something they either send a photo of to you, take a photo and you send it to you, or they fill it in online and you can comment back, even if it's just a thumbs up, you know, you're a star, whatever it is. And again, you know, anything they do, try and keep them connected, keep them part of your learning environment and your teaching environment by putting things up for them, wherever that might be, whatever works for you and your group. Keep parents involved and engaged as much as possible, and send out little reminders a week, a fortnight, saying, check in on the school website or the class Instagram page, because I've seen some brilliant stuff come in and you need to go and look at it. And then at the end of their reading challenge, when they've got through their reading path or stepping stones, really give them that's something to be proud of. Tell them you're proud of them, show them you're proud. A simple reading challenge chart certificate will suffice. It could be something else, but a certificate is easy. You can just fill them in online and send them to parents to print out, or you can even post them or whatever it is, or display them on the Facebook page. This one I just downloaded from a site called twinkle.com, but you could customize, make your own. If you've got a school logo, you can put it on there, whatever works for you. But validate the effort they have put in, keep them as connected as you possibly can, and hopefully they'll be excited and they'll want to do another reading challenge. And that is, I think, the end of my presentation. And I think I may have gone over, and I apologize for that, as it's the end of your day, I know. But I hope you found some useful tips or ideas, something to think about in there. And feel free to contact me. There's my email address if there's anything you'd like to ask or say. And I hope you get to have a look at some of the Collins Peapod readers and let us know what you think. So yes, thank you very much, and over to you.
Well, Miss, thank you very much for your presentation. And we have some questions, please, just to finish up this.
Of course.
Marcos Torres, he's asking, how can we get students to fall in love with reading? What recommendation would you give us?
To fall in love with reading, it is about the books they're presented with, because I do believe that young learners, young children, naturally like books. They naturally, in their own language, will pick up a book. So it is really key about engaging them, asking them to choose their own books, talk about what books they would like to read, and helping them find those right books, and not forcing them to read books they really don't like, because that will never, ever, ever engage them.
And also there is one more question that Luz is asking us, what platforms do you recommend for reading strategies?
What do you mean by the platforms for reading strategies? Do you mean
maybe websites? Maybe she means.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. I'm not entirely sure, if I'm honest, what I would recommend there, because my experience comes from, you know, reading with learners in the classroom, talking to teachers about the books that they like. I think, you know, reading in short bursts, short texts one at a time, taking it slowly, these things are really important. I think look for blogs. Collins does an excellent blog that involves reading for young learners. And yeah, I'm afraid I can't give you a one platform that I would recommend there. I'm sorry.
And this is the last question. What we got is, can you recommend some books for 11-year-old children?
11-year-old. At the moment, one of the things that I'm very interested in are textbooks. If your learners have access to mobile phones, have a look online at, there's some excellent textbooks that come to them in the form of text messages. So try those ones. Otherwise, Collins do an amazing series of both traditional stories. They do modern fiction as well. They've got the classics in there. You could have a look through their catalogue, and there's a lot there that I'd recommend.
Well, excellent presentation, Miss. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Have a good night. Well, teachers and ladies and gentlemen, please, we have just, as you can see, we have just wrapped up this our TDC 2020. So we want to thank all the speakers, consultants, and publishers who have participated, and especially to community of English teachers who have been connected to these days, and the sole objective and expanding our knowledge to develop our educational work with the circumstances that we are facing this year. And to be prepared to continue corresponding to challenges and presented us nowadays and in the future. Well, just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, and perhaps you haven't seen all of the presentations, so the videos is recorded on Facebook and YouTube at a page of SBS. Please don't forget it. If you have missed any presentation, you just look for it. 25th, Friday 25th, and Saturday 26th, and you can find it there, the videos that have been presented if you missed one of them. And the last but not least, we want to thank English Training Peru for being the host on these presentations, because he was helping us for this presentation. We really thank them. And I think this is just the old thing what we want to show you right here. I'm just gonna say you have a good afternoon, have a good weekend. Bye bye. See you. Have a good weekend, sir and ladies and gentlemen. Bye bye. See you.